Kia ora, maroilele. Warm greetings to you all. Welcome and thank you for joining us. I will open our session with a karakia. Me karakia tātou. Tuia ki runga, tuia ki ralo, tuia ki roto, tuia ki waho. Tuia ki te here tangata, ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao, haumie, huie, tai ki e. Tapu ke awhia e o tua i o tau lotolotonga, tapu ke whanua eiki o tau loa nuku ai. Tapu ke tangata I whanua a te aroa New Zealand, tapu ke te mautolu kotoa. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the presence of God in our midst. I acknowledge the sacred whenua of Aotearoa that gathered us together. I acknowledge tangata whenua, the Indigenous people of Aotearoa, New Zealand. And I also acknowledge you all for joining us today in this wet and wild weather. Maloi lele, ko kingoako Emeline Unga. I'm Emeline. I'm from the beautiful Kingdom of Tonga. I've been involved in the education sector, working with Māori and Pacific grassroots and community groups. And I've been so fortunate to join the Centre for Social Impact for over 2 years now, providing research and evaluation work in support for amazing organizations like yourself. So it's quite a privilege to be leading this session today on working in a culturally responsive way. We begin with karakia to honour tikanga and ground ourselves in the cultural practices and values of tangata whenua. This karakia connects our spiritual and physical selves and remind us that our work is sacred, yes, it is important, and bring us together into collective focus. As a Tongan in Aotearoa, New Zealand, I also use a whakatapu, which is a Tongan way of acknowledging your presence, the people, the communities, the cultures, the relations that you represent. The differences in our cultural background is something that we all have in common here. And I acknowledge the wisdom that already exists within you, and you're bringing it into this space. Thank you. The shared karakia and whakatapu that I use also open the session in clear tapu, which is restrictions and possibly things that we might cross unintentionally. So we are apologizing in advance of doing that. In order to open this space and welcome everyone as learners in this, with the intention to strengthen what you already know, what you already are doing, and give ourselves permission to learn from each other. Make mistakes as part of growing. Where we pause, we reflect, we listen, and we do better. That's the spirit I encourage everyone to carry on into the session today. So I'll pass it on to the CSI team to introduce themselves. Kia ora, Michelle.
Kia ora koutou, ko Michelle Gallagher tōku ingoa. If you've been here before, you've met me. I'm Michelle and I support our beautiful talk series and all of our associates here at CSI. I just wanted to warmly welcome you all here to Pūaha Talks, our free webinars offered to the community sector through support from the Centre for Social Impact and Foundation North. Foundation North are always keen to see who of their grantees are coming along and taking advantage. So on your screen, a little poll has popped up. If you could get your voting fingers out and click on there, that would be great. Thank you, everyone. Oh, you're really quick off the mark today. Thank you. Beautiful. And Emeline and Kathryn, you just have to click the X box. Thank you. Lovely. And a little bit of housekeeping for today. We've got some time for Q&A, so please use the chat. They will remain confidential. But yeah, know that this is a safe place. We welcome your questions, big or small. There's no wrong questions to ask. So yeah, welcome and thank you. Over to you, Kathryn.
Kia ora everyone, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Kathryn tōku ingoa, no Czech Republic me ingarangi o ko tipuna, no Tamaki Makaurau a hau, ko kuatunu tōku kāinga e te rohi a iwi a Ngāti Hei. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. So I'm Kathryn. I'm originally from Auckland and I now live in Kuatunu, which is on the east coast of the Coromandel Peninsula in the rohi of Ngāti Hei. My ancestry is Czech from my father's side and English from my mother. My background is in community psychology and evaluation, and I've been an associate with CSI for about 8 years. So I'm going to go on to do a little bit of an introduction to the workshop today, and give some background to why we're here talking about culturally responsive ways of working. So last year we invited community groups who had attended to Pūaha Talks, just like this one, to give us a little bit of feedback about what some of the issues are that are important to them and that they're grappling with. So our feedback from the community groups was a whole range of things like, where do we go for funding? What about community engagement? How can we engage with te tiriti? Culturally responsive ways of working, evaluation and impact, strategy development, all the topics that you'll be familiar with and that you know are important to have to build and keep a strong organisation. So as a result of that, we developed these 3 capability development resources that you can see on the slide. And these are all now live on the Te Pūaha website. So we've got the funding guide for organisations that are new for grant seeking and needing to apply for funding and to figure out what to do. We've got the capability wheel for larger not-for-profit organisations who are really looking to deepen their practice. And that's got a range of tools in there for organisations to reflect on how they're going and how they can improve. And we've also got the Core Skills Toolkit. So you may have seen this online. This is a resource that introduces topics that the community group said were important to them. So the audience is groups like yourself, new and small community groups, setting out on their journey, and each skill area is important for strengthening your organisation. So these 3 resources, they're complementary. They are either standalone or they can be thought of as building blocks. So starting with getting funding, getting your core skills in place, and then moving on to really deepen your practice. So the purpose of this series of workshops is to really drill down into the Core Skills Toolkit. If you've had a look at it online, you'll see that it's really quite general. Each skill area has an introduction, a short section on why it's important. It asks a set of questions to get you started and also links through to a set of relevant resources and templates that you could find useful. So this is our 4th workshop that we've offered on the toolkit, and we've got more short workshops coming up in August. So in this particular workshop, we're drilling down into the topic on the toolkit, which is about working in culturally responsive ways. And we've got Emeline, who is one of our multi-talented CSI associates, who's going to share some of the things she's learned and experienced when working and engaging with community groups, and in particular, what she's noticed is important for working in culturally responsive ways. So I'm going to hand over to you, Emeline, about talk about what you're going to be covering in the session today.
Kia ora, Kathryn. So today we will talk about a few things. Why culture matters, we'll have a look at that. What is a culturally responsive way of working and why is it important? And also some practical examples that I will use to maybe shed a little bit more light into my experience. And we will also have time for talanoa at the end. So this is a time for questions and answers. If you have any experience that is different or interesting, you want to share and add on, that will be in that time. And if there's anything that I have not covered or we have not covered today and you would like to know more of, you can share that during the talanoa time. At any time of the presentation, write them into the chat, which is our next slide. Thank you. So on the chat, can we move to the next slide, please? On the chat, thank you for introducing yourselves. It's always great to know who's in the room. But this particular one, we would really appreciate if you can do that. It's not a test, so everybody has got their own unique response. There's no right or wrong answer. So for me, or for you, working in a culturally responsive way means da 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 da. So what does that mean for you to work in a culturally responsive way? If you can write down your answer on the chat, that will be very appreciated. And also, any partai questions you may have, any thoughts, any wondering that is coming to you during the session, feel free to write them down because we will discuss it in depth during the Talanoa time. So all questions are great questions, people. And any wonderings, just write them down because somebody else in the room might be thinking exactly the same thought that you have got. And it's great to ask away. All right. Oh, and just a little disclaimer, we will pick on some of your answers later on, but no pressure, no pressure. We're not going to put names on. So thank you so much. And we'll move on to the next slide. Thank you. So why culture matters. This session is about culturally responsive way of working. But before we do this, it's important to have a shared sense of what does the word culture mean to us? What do we mean by culture, and why does it matter that we pause a little and think about this word? Because this word is so filled with meanings and layers that it's important we ourselves are clear on what we kind of mean by that. So, and why is it essential to the important work that we're all doing, you're all doing in your organization? Let me take you on a little walk up Te Pane o Mataoho, the beautiful Mangere Mountain. And when I look at these pictures last night, I thought that today will look exactly like those pictures, but it's not. And I guess that's part of being culturally responsive. We go with the flow of we can't help nature, so we'll just go with that. It was a gorgeous and crisp morning. The sky was painted with beautiful hues of blues and whites. And what better way to appreciate nature but to take some photos? The 3 photos you see were taken on the same morning from different parts of the maunga. If you look closely, the skies look different, slightly different in each photo. I would like to bring to your attention the concept of iturangi. In indigenous Pacific cultures, the Samoan word iturangi refers to this unique side view of the skies or the heavens. And as you can see, the 3 different photos have got 3 different views of the skies or the heavens. And acknowledging Reverend Professor Casimira Va'ai, whose work is around iturangi here. So the 3 photos present 3 different views of the heavens. Whether you view the heavens from picture A, B, or C, that is left, middle, or right, what you see and what you experience is real and meaningful for you. Understanding culture is similar to the different views in the 3 photos. Culture means different things to different people, depending on what they see and experience from their side view of the heavens. Culture includes the values we hold, the knowledge we carry, the beliefs we live by, and the practices we pass down. Most often, we do this without even naming them culture, because culture is lived in our daily experiences. We don't pause to say, hey, I am doing culturally responsive right now, because that's not really it. You just live it daily. Our culture reflects how we do things that are important and the values we place on things that matter. If we value whakawhanaungatanga in relationships in our organization, it may mean and look different to different people. What does that look like in our daily interactions as individuals in our organization, as a staff, in how we show up for the community we serve? So it's important to pause a little and think about which side view are we looking through? Which worldview are we looking through? Because it may be different to the person next to you. Culture shapes what we believe is important. How do we go about doing things that are important? As an organization, several points about understanding culture that you might like to consider here. Like the photos, we all come into the space with different side views of the same sky. We all arrive with a particular culture viewpoint, a particular value, beliefs, and experience. How do we show appreciation for these cultural differences and include them to energize the important work that you're already doing? Our culture and cultural views are superpowers. This is in the language of my kids. This means that everyone brings a superpower to strengthen our important work. If you view every person that comes into your space, every community member has got a superpower within themselves. Amazing, yay. To make a real difference. When our superpowers are valued, there is an internal drive to succeed in the work that you do. But what does that look like for you? Our culture and cultural views are only part of the whole story. Just like there are 3 different side views of the heavens, we only see from one. We can't see from the other 2, meaning we had to be mindful of all the differences that other people are bringing into the space. To be open and courageous to learn something different. And yes, it may be uncomfortable in the first experience, but that's a sign of growth and change. As an organization, how do we approach our community that may have different viewpoints, different iturangi and side views of the heavens from ours? For the rest of the session, I share my experience from my particular iturangi, my side view of the heaven, and I'm mindful it may not be the same with everybody. I speak as a migrant Tongan woman who has been fortunate to support and work alongside Pacific grassroots organizations. By speaking from my own experience, I hope that it will enable you to think about the culturally responsive practice that works well for your organization. Let's look at an example here. So a Pacific Women's Support Group had a meeting. Most of those meetings were in corporate boardrooms with formal tables and chairs, but hardly anybody spoke. One of the women suggested, can we move it into a community space? And this may seem like it makes sense to do that, but that suggestion alone changed everything. The women start bringing food, share stories, laugh openly in an informal setting without barriers because the environment was familiar to them and they were comfortable. Culture is the work that we do. And when it does not go as planned, listen closely and make changes. It will strengthen how you respond and build relationship. Thank you, Miss. Thank you. Next slide, please. Now that you've learned a little bit about culture and that we come from different views of the heavens, I now invite you to hop into our waka for the journey ahead to learn more about a culturally responsive way of working from the Pacific. In Tonga, we say takanga e tauwhohe, our paddles rowing is one. It describes a relational way of working. When our paddles work together as one, we move faster towards the destination. Everyone in the waka chooses to be here. You chose to wake up and come here today, so well done. And the reason why we're here, because we care for the work we do. We care for the community we serve, and we want to do better. So no one is forced to row. No one is forced to be here. No one is just sitting around in big gago. Each person, whether you are a staff member, a community member, or a funder or a volunteer, you bring your paddle, you bring your own taonga. You're a gift. You bring your own superpower. This also linked to the previous slide. Every paddler in this waka has a superpower, and that is their particular side views of the heavens. Their cultural lens is a gift. It's a taonga that we as an organization can utilize and value. And how do we show that? But for the waka to move forward, we need a shared rhythm in how we row and where we are going. That's what cultural responsiveness is. It is about creating the right environment where each person's taonga is valued and can move in harmony with others. Takanga e tauwhohe also recognize that we are not isolated in our waka. We work in relational ways to others around us. There are other waka. If you can see at the back, there's about 2 waka behind the main one in the front. Not only are we in our waka together as an organization, for example, but we are also in a wider community with other waka that could represent similar organization to yours, like everybody who's in this room, other funders, other government agencies that you may like to consider working with. You and your waka are not alone in this journey. How do you also nurture your relations with others so that you are paddling in harmony together? So some questions to think about: who is in our waka right now? If you think about your organization, who is in our waka and what's important to them? What taonga, what gifts, what superpowers do they bring with them? And where are we going? How do we go together? Next slide, please. Okay. So earlier you were asked to write in the chat what working in a culturally responsive way means to you. Thank you. Thank you for your responses. Michelle, could you please read out a couple of the chat responses?
Yeah, so I've actually grouped them a little bit because there were some themes coming across. So we had people that were talking more about respect and responsiveness, so respecting different worldviews and respecting our own cultural lens. Then we had being active listeners and relationship building, so it was kind of a focus. Then we had more about inclusion, being inclusive of practices and different senses of belonging. And then we had a little bit about authenticity, like making sure you reflect who you really are. And a little bit more about communication, so being engaging mindfully and communicating with respect. Those were kind of the key groups.
Beautiful responses, and thank you. These are all important part of what working in a culturally responsive way means, because everybody are already doing it. You're just here to add on, hopefully, get some tips that could strengthen what you are already doing. As we've seen in the 3 photos before, there is no one right way to be culturally responsive. It is based on your particular organization, the community you work with, and the important work that you do. Your answers indicate that you are already working in a culturally responsive way. And this session aims to build upon the amazing work you're already doing. A culturally responsive way of working is about recognizing, respecting, valuing the cultural diversity of the communities you serve and the people that are in your waka. Culturally responsiveness refers to how you work to honor who people are and their values, their history, their ways of knowing. It means creating services and systems and relationships that center those things. That may sound simple, but it asks us to shift what we do, how we do it in ways that are responsive to the needs of the community, of your community. In practice, culturally responsiveness may look like starting meetings with a karakia. Because it grounds us, there's meaning underneath the practice. And those meanings are important to the daily life of the community you work with. But it also goes beyond karakia to include elders and knowledge holders in the community, to include them in decision making. It's building long-lasting relationships, and it's not a one-off take. It's not an extraction and walk away, but it's investing time, resources, to find out what matters most to the community, to your community, and working with them closely on solutions. It is designing programs that move people and change lives, their faith, recognizing their faith, what's important, their families. And it's not just about deadlines in a funding scheme, although that's important as well. An example would be a mental health provider working within the Pacific community. The project leads were health experts of Pacific heritage who had expertise, could communicate in the languages of the community. They provide and adjusted schedule appointments and went to the community space, such as church-based areas, because that's where people gather. A culturally responsive way of working can also take consideration of gender and power dynamics, men having a kava circle so that they can have discussions that is only for their ears, and in that way, respect the relationship with women. Culturally responsive ways of working is about recognizing that youth who may be going through some sensitive issues need their own space, and possibly a youth-led facilitator who have experienced the same thing. So culturally responsive ways of working are reciprocal and have a ripple effect on impacting the lives of people and making a long-time difference. Next slide, please. So why work in a culturally responsive way? I would like to bring to you an important quote that I think, covers why it's important to work in culturally responsive ways. Solutions are already within communities. We just have to start from where people come from their values, and build from there. And this is by Indigenous specific researcher who has believed that any issues, any concerns that has to do with community, the solutions are already there within them. We just need to walk alongside them and support them. So why is it important? When you're responding to the diverse needs in the community, you're willing to listen and learn from what they have to say. It matters because they know what makes a difference for them. We are not saviors here who come to save them. We are coming to walk alongside them. If we go in thinking that solutions are already within communities and respond to that, then we are showing respect. Our waka is not ours alone. We treat others with dignity. We value their taonga. We show our work will gain effectiveness because working together in the waka means we are going to paddle together without going around in circles. Culturally grounded work has a clear and shared strategy that encourages every member to participate because they feel valued and they know we see potential in what they bring. And of course, importantly, we include everyone. Everyone in the waka has a seat. They have a paddle, they have a voice. They're not just at the back doing the work, but you are creating the conditions for everybody to be heard. And how do we know this? How do we know that everybody in our waka is heard? And even with all of that, every waka hits rough waters, just like the bad weather today. Your organization might experience a conflict, a misstep, a death, a change in funder expectations. And in those moments, there is no perfect plan. But what holds you together is the relationships that you have built with the people in your waka. And let's hope that you can strengthen those relationships. So when things go astray, you tap into those relationships. I'll talk a bit about an example here. So there was a community project that happened and an elder passed away. So rather than continuing with the project to meet the deadline, there was a pause in the project. People attend the funeral. They were there, they were being present before they come back and continue. So it's really important from a Pacific culture to nurture the va, or the relationship with people, because relationship is so important in how we see everything and connect with everyone. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is we can pause and reflect a little about this one. So how is our kete of working in a culturally responsive way going? So there is no judgment here, but it is more for reflection on how are we going? Because you enter the space, you are already doing the work. How do we strengthen a culture in our organization that matters, that value diverse needs and reflect that in the vision and the direction of our work? How do we get buy-in from people, from our community? By listening to their dreams and their aspirations, by believing that everybody has a taonga within them, that community already have solutions, and what can we do to support them? How do we go design with our communities in ways that are relational and empowering? We don't go design with them at the end where we show the outcome. We start right from the beginning. And how do we take the community by the hand and walk with them through the whole process? Real co-design is slow and it takes hard work, but it builds a strong foundation and leaves a legacy. And how do we make deep and meaningful impact with the journey we take together? In the waka, how do we value everybody? How do we know that where we're going, we're going to reach there, but it's also making an impact? Impact is not always measured in numbers for when we apply for funding. That's important. But it's also in the stories of change. Sometimes it's seen in a daily grind where youth have opportunities for employment and being mentored by an experienced adult who has also walked the same path. Sometimes impact is in the tears and laughter of a solo mom who had finally got support to start a new life with a safe home for her babies and a baking home business. I'm hoping that by this time you would have some ideas to add to your kitty. And if not, hey, good luck. If not, we have a few more support for you. Next slide, please. And I'll pass it on to Kathryn.
Kia ora, Emeline. It was fantastic. Such pearls of wisdom in there. So thank you. So look, I'm just going to quickly mention the resources that we've got on the Te Pūaha website in relation to this topic. So this is just a selection of resources that you can go and explore. There's we just selected these ones thinking they could be useful. The Diversity Works one is got a wealth of really practical tools for your organisation to see how you're going in relation to the topic. It's got tools and strategies you can use. There's the Working with Tangata Whenua. It's a very practical resource about engaging with tangata whenua. And yeah, Inclusive Aotearoa have done a really great little resource on having a community conversations on belonging. Look, there's a few things that you can delve into there, but I think what I'd like to say at this stage is that we're keeping an eye on how the toolkit is being used and what people are going to. We're keeping our ears to the ground about what's important. So the toolkit, the topics and the resources are going to change and evolve over time as we hear what's bubbling up from the surface. Oh, the other thing is that if you have any resources related to this topic that Emeline's been talking about that you'd like to share with others, please put them in the chat, and we'd also love to hear about what you're using. So it looks like people have done a really great responses to Emeline with identifying what working in a culturally appropriate way or culturally responsive way means to them, but we haven't had a lot of questions. So Emeline, I've just got a question for you that people might find interesting, just based on your experience of working with community groups in different settings and contexts. What would be one key piece of advice you'd give about working in a culturally responsive way?
Kia ora, Kathryn. Oh, guys, come on, don't be shy. You can write some questions to join the conversation. But kia ora, Kathryn, for that wonderful question. So for me, it's always been about relationship. Relationship for me is the key glue that makes a huge difference in the different communities I've seen and been. But relationship, just like our view of the side of the heaven, relationships mean different things to different people. At home, relationship is different at home with your family members. When you go into the workplace, when you go into school, when you work in a community, relationships are different. But for me, that's a common thread that ties people together, is building good, positive, and strong relationships. But that doesn't mean there's no bad relationships in there too. I think if relationships within the community and with the community are established so early, right from the beginning of your interaction, it will set you up for when conflict happens, when tension happens. The foundation is strong, that you have trust in each other to pull through. So that's what I think at the moment. Thank you. Oh, I also think that great relationship fuels the important work that you do. That's the fuel. That's the energy to drive the important work that you do. Malo.
Kia ora, Emeline. We've got a great question here. Do you have any suggestions for ways to ask people for their input without putting an undue burden on them to speak for their whole culture?
And that's whoever asked that question is a very smart person. But you can always, if you go in with the same expectation that every person has something great to say and to contribute, then they speak from their side view, from their worldview and their lens of the heaven. They cannot speak on behalf of everyone. Just like me, I am Tongan. I'm based in the Pacific, but I cannot speak on behalf of all Tongan people or on behalf of Pacific. I can only speak from my experience. And that's a safe way of approaching people. And maybe try working in a group if they feel comfortable, like small groups of where they can have conversation, be mindful if it's gender is always important in the community groups that I've been in. Like sometimes they'll feel much more comfortable to work in gender-based groups. Other times they're okay with mixed group, but it's about reading the room, reading the vibes in the room, and responding appropriately to that.
Mm-hmm. Kia ora, Emeline. Yeah, I've got another question for you about lessons that you've learned. So for community groups that have really you've seen as have been, from your perspective, you think they've done it well, you know, in terms of being able to work in ways that are culturally responsive. Are there some lessons that you think you can share? Like, what are some of those success factors that can be really good for an organisation to have in place to be able to do this work well?
I really appreciate the responses that were shared earlier because a lot of those responses showed a successful place of working responsibly. Open communication is important. When you have got a clear direction and vision of where the work is heading, where the waka is heading, when your direction is clear, then you will be able to clearly communicate that with the people that are in the waka. So open and clear communication is important, but also creating the environment where you would allow voices to be shared. So everybody in the waka has a voice and they feel comfortable to share that voice because they are part of that waka. Another thing that is important is for me, one of the things that I get is the vibe or the feeling of the community. When you walk into a community, it immediately hits you with the friendliness or the mood in the office that shows me, oh, this is a cool place to be working in. They appreciate and they value each person within that workplace. Could it be the cleaner, the volunteer, the leader? They all know each other. So that's a positive vibe and energy you feel when you step into a place. It's also a happy place to be, the community. And this doesn't mean that it's all sunshine and butterflies, because community groups also have, tensions in there. And that's a natural way of functioning. But a strong cultural foundation, when conflict and issue shows up, they can navigate that safely. So leaders that are also accessible within the community, that they reflect back to the community the values of the community, that they show up to community events, that they know who the people are in the community events. And when you walk in, like some of the organizations I have been into, there's kaumatua in place there. And they don't just come into the important meetings, you see them consistently in organizations. They are wealth of knowledge. Their knowledge is sought out to inform the work that is done. And Also, another very clear example of a culturally responsive place of work is that the community turns up when you have important events happening. They turn up in numbers. Why? Because you have established a strong relationship with them. They feel valued. They have got buy-in into the work that you do. You value them and you include them, and that's important. So when your community turns up, when you call for them, that shows to me a very successful and culturally responsive way of working.
Kia ora, Emeline.
Kia ora.
Well, we'll start wrapping up this session now, and get ready to close. Just before I pass it over to Emeline for a closing karakia, I just want to thank everybody for coming along, for your interest and engagement, and with this session and this topic. So as I mentioned before, this is our 4th out of 7 workshops. So keep an eye out for more workshops that are coming up. 3 more workshops that will be coming up over the month of August. To date, we've done workshops on communicating your work, community engagement, and also te tiriti. And you'll find recordings of these workshops on the website, the Core Skills Toolkit website, on the particular page on that topic. So we're going to be using these workshops to build up the content of the toolkit, and we're planning to sort of continue to offer to community our capability development resources. I'll just pass it over. Michelle or Emeline, is there anything else you'd like to add at this stage? Oh, Michelle, is the chat, the Foundation North, you've already done it? Great. Okay, thank you. So I'll just pass over to Emeline for closing karakia.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and for joining us today. We have come to the end, and I hope that you took something with you from this presentation to add to your kiti. If there is anything that we didn't cover, I didn't cover, and you would like to know a little bit more of, feel free to send an email through, and we will get back to you, or I'll get back to you. If you have something that is on your in your mind, but you don't want to share it today, I really appreciate if you can just reach out privately to me or one of us. I really appreciate your time for being here, and wishing you all the best. So I will close us off with a karakia. And this karakia is to release us with a clear heart and head from our session today, and to get everyone safely back to your respective area, whether that's work or it's a family life. Me karakia tātou. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te uru tapunui. Kia wātea, kia mama, te ngākau, te tinana, te wairua. I te ara tangata. Koiara e rongo, whakaira ake ki runga. Kia tina, tina, huie, tai kie. Kia ora, everyone. Go well.
Kia ora.